Good morning, Night City. Okay, hello. I am here with a video about all of the 2025 books that I read this year. In 2025, I read like 45 books that were published this year out of like 260 something books that I read in total. So like a big portion and chunk of what I read were 2025 releases. And I'm going to tell you which ones are actually worth your time, because so many things get published every year, but not all of them are worth picking up. So I'm going to start with like the worst one and make our way up to the best ones, so you know which 2025 releases you should be putting on your TBR for 2026. Let's get started. The worst 2025 release that I read, which I feel bad about because I did in fact have an arc of this. So sorry to the publisher who gave me this arc only for me to absolutely hate this book. The Gallery Assistant by Kate Belly. The premise that intrigued me here was that this is about a person who's a gallery assistant, love a museum. One of their like high profile clients is killed and she finds these like hidden messages in the painting, so she has to piece together what happened to her. Except all of this is happening like shortly after 9/11, and she was in one of the towers when it went down. This whole book is about like New York City recovering from 9/11 trauma. Also, there's this like artist who was murdered. It was just so tonally weird to me. It's weird to me that this was published in 2025 because I don't know why it took so long to be published, whether 2025 makes this particularly relevant for any reason. Was not, to me, a great experience. There is a reading vlog on me reading that if you want to check it out, but would not recommend that one. Okay, another arc that I got that I feel bad that I didn't like, They're Monstrous Hearts by Yeet Turhan. So this is about some man who's like down on his luck, and then he finds out that a rich relative dies and he's inherited the mansion, but when he goes there, it's kind of like run down. There's all these butterflies everywhere. Okay, this one was just so like confusingly written. The plot had such premise, but then it wasn't actually a good execution of it. It kept like jumping timelines, if I remember correctly, and was, I don't know, just weird overall. There is also a reading vlog on me reading that if you want my in-depth thoughts as I was going along to it, but thumbs down from me. Okay, then one that I'm like, is this bad or is it just wasn't for me? One Golden Summer by Carly Fortune. So this is a romance novel. It's the second in like a interconnected standalones kind of series, and it is about this woman who is staying in a cottage for the summer with her grandmother, great aunt, some elderly relative. She's a photographer, and like her only well-known work is this photo she took of these teenagers jumping off of a boat. Subject of that photo is this man who she like had a crush on when she was a teenager, and then of course he's there. I wonder what happens in this romance novel. And he keeps being throughout the whole book like, oh, we can't be together. I can't tell you why. And I figured it out like pretty early on. I'm like, oh, probably something like this. And then it was something like that. So wasn't shocked and awed and oh so emotional about the plot twist because I saw it coming a mile away. And then also I just think it's stupid when adults don't communicate of like, I have this boundary because of this. Let's adhere to that. And then they don't adhere to the boundary, because why would we do that? Who knows? Ugh, didn't like it. The only thing I liked about this book was the fact that it was set in like small town Ontario. Okay, one that's in my on-haul pile, and I'll have to do an on-haul video at some point. Mother of God by Sarah Peters. So I bought this because I was going to see Mona Awad speak, and this author was going to be there too. I was like, okay, I gotta lock in, gotta actually know what this other author is going to be talking about. It's about this woman who just went through a breakup, and her mother says like, hey, come back and stay with me. So she has to drive across country to go see her mother, but she has a really rocky relationship with her mother because of some stuff that happened in her childhood, but then her mother also has trauma and trouble dealing with things because of something that happened in her childhood. This is just generational trauma, but also like, I didn't know going into this that trauma was very specifically like childhood abuse, like in the way. So that caught me off guard because I didn't know that going in. Would have liked that heads up. There are no trigger warnings in the beginning of the book. I don't know if it says it in the flap. I don't think it even says it in the flap that that's what that is, other than like malevolent presence of Darlene's on again, off again boyfriend Ed. So that wasn't great to have that sprung on me. Like a singular story of love and horror, but from one of the great writers of their generation. And like, there were some horror elements, I guess, but I don't think this is horror in the traditional sense, other than like, you know, childhood abuse being really fucking horrific, okay? And this author's originally a poet, and this is their first novel. So it does, like, slip into poetry at certain places, particularly when it has, like, text message conversations. Didn't enjoy that as a writing style. If I wanted to read poetry, I would read poetry. This one did not work out for me, unfortunately. Another book, unfortunately by a Canadian author, Emily Austin's We Could Be Rats. This one is about two sisters. One of them tries to commit suicide, and then the other is, like, trying to write her suicide note or something. It was weird. Or she finds a journal with the suicide notes in it. I might have just spoiled the book. Oops. I thought this one was just kind of little sad girl. Little sad girl for me. I do like a weird girl fiction. The sad girl fiction, not so much. It was just a lot of, like, ponderances on self-harm and the state of the world and sibling bonds that hit maybe a little bit too close to home for me. So was not something I enjoyed about this book. So We Could Be Rats, unfortunately, not for me, maybe for other people. A lot of this is going to be me saying that these aren't books for me, but there might be for other people, because I like to hedge my bet. I think there's an audience out there for every book, but these are ones I didn't like at this point. We will get to the good ones soon, I swear. Okay, House of Beth. This is about a woman who, I can't remember why she does it, but she marries a man who has children already and moves in, but then there's, like, basically the ghost of his ex-wife or his deceased wife, like, basically haunting the house. Did not enjoy this woman who, first of all, I'm pretty sure at some point in the books was like, I don't want to have kids, and then just marries a man who has kids already. Like, that's certainly not a choice I would have made. And I think the elements of this that were, like, the supernatural horror didn't go far enough and could have been executed in a way that was a lot more sinister rather than subtle. I think that's about all I can say without spoiling things. Ooh, I don't think this was paced well. I didn't understand the characters' motivations here. Not a very good book, in my opinion. Scythe and Sparrow by Brynne Weaver. So this one is the third in the Ruinous Love trilogy. So we have the romance with the final brother, who's, like, the doctor, and then his, like, circus girlfriend, Rose. To start off with, look at this lonely tab for the only Keanu Reeves reference in this whole book. I'm starved in this book compared to how I was in the last one, okay? Don't you dare. Keanu Reeves is a god among men, and you will not ruin him for me by comparing him to Lachlan fucking Kane, okay? That's the only Keanu Reeves reference in this one. I, first of all, was really confused by the timeline here, because this is apparently happening concurrently with Butcher and Blackbird. But the way I interpreted the relationship they had in Butcher and Blackbird was, like, way farther along than what technically they would be in this book, so that confused me. Basically, the first circus performer, like, injures herself, and Finn is the only doctor around to, like, care for her, and because she doesn't have anyone else, she ends up staying at his house while she's recovering. And you know what? Very forgettable. Don't really remember what happened in this one compared to the other ones. Forgettable, like I said. The first one, just really good. Then we got progressively worse. So what a flop of an ending to this series for me. Okay, above that we have The Summer I Ate the Rich by Micah Molit. And this one is about a teenage girl whose mother works as, like, a house cleaner for a rich family. She's a unique teenager because she is a zombie. Then I think she, like, falls in love with the son of this rich family or something, and then someone gets accused of a hit and run, I think, or someone hits one of the workers of the rich family and they can't figure out who, something like that. This one had such promise with the title, The Summer I Ate the Rich, and then it very much did not have that much eating of the rich and had a little too much romancing of the rich, if you pick up what I'm putting down. I thought that muddied the message and is such a waste of a good title for a book. So That one disappointed me. Next, we have At Dark I Become Loathsome, which is by Eric LaRocca, and I really need to stop reading Eric LaRocca at this point because every time I'm like, ooh, that's such a cool premise, let me read it, and then I don't end up liking it, and I'm wasting my own time. So At Dark I Become Loathsome, there's this man who is kind of dealing with his trauma by helping other people deal with their trauma, except the way that he helps them deal with their trauma is by burying them alive, and like maybe sometimes he'll dig them back up. I thought that the main character came off so edgelord. It was very like, ooh, I'm so dark and twisted. Ha ha ha. This guy would have a Joker tattoo. Like, ugh. Hated how this character was written, and ugh, I need to stop reading Eric LaRocca is basically the moral of the story here. Last 3.25 is Mate, okay, by Ali Hazelwood. This one was just kind of a letdown because I did really love Bride. I think Bride was in my top books of last year. So this is the follow-up to Bride. It is a supernatural romance series. The first one was between a werewolf and a vampire, and this is just like a werewolf and a hybrid. And ooh, I thought, based on Bride, and I'm like, you know what, maybe I do like the werewolf romances. But I don't. It's because that was a vampire romance with some werewolf thrown in. This was pure werewolf romance, and the glands, I couldn't, the amount of times glands were mentioned just icked me out. I didn't find the like pack dynamics to be very interesting, or like the backstory of the main character to be particularly compelling compared to like vampires. I just think I'm a vampire girly and not a werewolf girly, and I need to commit to that. I need to commit to the bit that I am a vampire girly, and I need to stop trying werewolf romances. Okay, now we get into the books that I gave a 3.5, and I'm gonna be honest, I'm surprised this one I gave a 3.5 because I literally don't remember any of it. On Hallowed Halls by Lily Wilkinson, I read her. Do I know her? No. I have no idea what happened. I think it was a Dark Academia. I think there was like portals, potentially, shifting to some kind of demon realm. Genuinely do not remember a single thing that happened in this book. So, you know, it wasn't bad. It was just very forgettable. And then we have The Staircase in the Wood by Chuck Wendig. This is about a group of friends who were friends when they were kids, and they found the staircase in the woods, and they like walk up it, and one of them disappears. And then in their adulthood, they return to try and like figure out what happened to their missing friend. And they get like trapped in this alternate dimension. I really liked the plot aspects of this. I did not like the character aspects of this. I thought they were very one-dimensional character. It felt a little bit like, I want to write my own version of the like part 2 of It, basically. That's what this felt like. I don't think it was any good. So I got a 3.5. Like, there were redeemable elements here, but I had pretty high expectations because I really liked the Book of Accidents. So I don't know what Chuck was doing here, but Chuck fucked up. Okay, and then Vampires at Sea by Lindsay Mirbaum. This is one that I had an advanced copy of, and honestly, I thought I would love this. This is about 2 vampires who go on a cruise, and then they meet someone who's just very alluring. This book was like a cheating storyline, and I think I learned in 2025 that I don't like books with cheating storylines. I think Blood on Her Tongue might be the only one that I actually enjoyed. And there's a lot of other elements going on in Blood on Her Tongue that's not that for me to like care about this. Everyone sucked in this book. And like, they're vampires, so they're gonna suck, but everybody sucked in this book. They were so just whiny the whole time and like making poor decisions and like, ugh. Did not care for any of them. This was Laszlo and Nadia from What We Do in the Shadows, but if they weren't funny. Okay, Caught Up by Navessa Allen. I did enjoy Lights Out in a, how do I say this without coming off mean? I enjoyed it by not taking it seriously. I read it as a comedy, like a slapstick comedy, because of some of the ridiculousness that happens in that book, okay? I went into Caught Up like, oh, I'm probably not going to enjoy this seriously, but maybe I'll have some fun and have some laughs along the way. What I got was a lot of, frankly, condescending lectures about being a sex worker. And like, you don't have to condescend to me about that. I'm supportive of people who choose that career as long as it's the career they choose and they're not being taken advantage of and blah blah blah. Like, why are you giving me mid-chapter, mid-romance scene, a little lecture about how sex work is real work and sex workers deserve to be able to do their job in a way that is safe, sane, and consensual, basically. Like, I know. I'm on board. I was here for a little mafia romance with maybe some slapstick humor about, like, I don't know, a guy thinking he went blind because a mask is over his eyes. Like, that's what I was here for. And it just missed the mark as to why I was reading this book. So, not my favorite. I swear there are books I liked in here. We're just in the bottom 15 still, okay? So, Mayra by Nikki Gonzalez. This is about a woman who is like really close to her childhood friend, and then they kind of drifted apart in adulthood. And she hears from her childhood best friend who's like, hey, come stay in this like house out in the middle of nowhere with us. Have a little vacation weekend. And then she gets there. She basically can't leave. She's like trapped there. And I don't think this sufficiently leaned into that to be interesting. Very atmospheric. I will say, loved the atmosphere of this book, but I don't think the plot ended up paying off or was paced particularly well. So all of these are like 3.5s and I'm roasting them so hard. Blood in the Water by Tiffany D. Jackson. I read a lot of Tiffany D. Jackson this year, so I think this one might have suffered from my high expectations because like I got a 5-star out of Tiffany D. Jackson and like a couple 4.75s. So high expectations. This is about a girl who's kind of bullied and ostracized because her father is in jail, and she goes to this small town for the summer, and then there's someone who dies and they're speculating either murder or shark attack. So she has to try and like solve that because I think she's like kind of being blamed for it, if I remember correctly, which seemed weird. She's a teenager. What's she doing? This one seemed very predictable, but it's also YA, so I don't want to be too harsh on it because I have a lot more literary experience than probably your average teenager is going to have at this point to be able to see these plot twists coming because they are things that I saw coming because I've recognized. So overall, like, decent, just not one of my favorite releases of the year. Next we have School of Shards by Marina and Sergei Dyanchenko. This is the next book in the Vita Nostra series. Vita Nostra is, as a series, about this school where they require you to study really, really hard to... Oh, I don't know if I can explain that part of it. Basically, you can do magic and you have to study really, really hard, and if you fail your exams, like, something bad happens to someone in your personal life. This is the third book, but also maybe the second book, because they publish them in different orders in English than they did in the original language. So this one kind of falls between the first and the third, and basically the main character has taken over control of this school, but reality is unfolding because the changes she made to the school to try and make things better for the students. I just think that I don't need any more of this series at this point. It wasn't bad, it was just a little regurgitation of the second and first book a little bit, because they very much follow the same pattern of like, it's the start of the school year, the students are gonna suffer if they don't study enough, and then, oh, exams are around, did they study enough? It felt a little reminiscent, a little repetitive again at this point. So I would still recommend Vita Nostra, absolutely. That was a 5-star read for me, but I don't think School of Shards, by the time you get there, it's like worth picking up. My biggest upset of the year, because like, look at her, look at her. I mean, I'm gonna have to unhaul her because she's only a 3.5 and I can't keep anything less than like a 4.25 on my shelves at this point because I have a limited amount of space. So, Calabasas by R.F. Kuang is about Peter and Alice, whose grad supervisor has died, and they both just really need his letter of recommendation. I think they might be PhD students, except they're not like English. They work in the like magic department basically. So they use their skills to travel to hell to try and get his grad school recommendation. And then they basically have to travel through the circles of hell. And for the first, I would say third of this book, I was loving it. I was like, oh, this is the Divine Comedy, but as a comedy. I was tee-hee-heeing the like shades of the undergrad students. I was having so much fun reading about them. And then something happens between Peter and Alice. And we kind of stick with Alice for the rest of the book. And I did not particularly enjoy Alice as a character. I understand why she was written that way. I understand her motivations and her thought patterns and all of this stuff. To understand her as a character, I just didn't enjoy her as a character. So being basically exclusively with her for 2/3 of this book, when I didn't like being in her head, made this a really rough read. I also don't think that the payoff at the end was deserved, because I don't think we got enough time with Peter and Alice together to get the ending that we got. I don't know how spoilery that is, but that's kind of where I'm at with this. So, absolutely devastated that I didn't love this, especially because Babel was one of my best books I read this year, but unfortunately only a 3.5 for this one, so it's probably going to get on hauled very soon. Okay, last 3.5 was The Tunnel by Stephanie Ann. So this is an indie published novel. It is a horror about this group of teenagers who go into this tunnel and get lost and kind of split up. So there's like different groups of them, and they have to try and find their way out of these tunnels, while also the tunnels are kind of driving them insane a little bit. I did enjoy this. I've read things that are similar to it that I liked more. So like Subcutanean, House of Leaves to an extent, a little bit. I did enjoy it for what it is, which is an indie published horror. It just wasn't my favorite book of the year. And I think this is technically like going to be the first in a series. So maybe when we get more expansion on the lore in the second book, I can revisit this. But for now, 3.5. Okay, the first of the 3.75s is The Last Session by Julia Bartz. I did really like The Writing Retreat by Julia Bartz, so I was looking forward to this one. This is about a psychologist who has like a celebrity rich client who goes to this retreat and disappears. So she goes to this like wellness retreat to try and track down what happened to her client, and she kind of ends up sucked into all of the drama that's going on. So I did enjoy elements of this one. I did love the like culty vibes that this had. Definitely enjoyed that. It was okay. It was okay. 3.75. I also read She's a Lamb by Meredith Hambrock. This one is about a woman who is just so desperate to make it in the theater, and she auditions for The Sound of Music, and she is ended up assigned to be the governess of the children playing the Von Trapp children, except not as Maria, as like actually the behind the scenes babysitter for the children. So she is absolutely convinced herself that the director actually made her the understudy. And so if something were to happen to the lead, who could possibly be stepping in? And she just kind of gets driven mad by her desire for a leading role. I did enjoy this, but as it's being billed as a horror, I wish it'd been a bit more horror. I feel like I had to wait a little bit too far into the book for her to actually go to the violent extremes that I was hoping she would. For me, this one didn't go far enough, but I think someone who prefers a more like moderate horror might like this one a lot more, and like the descent into madness. What is it? Weird girl fiction, like She's a Lamb for that crowd who wants weird girl fiction. I support women's rights, but I also support women's wrongs kind of book. But a bit more toned down than what I would prefer. Like, it's not a Mayfly, you know? And we have Everybody Wants to Rule the World Except Me by Django Wexler. This was the sequel to How to Become the Dark Lord and Die Trying. So this is the sequel. Devi is now the Dark Lord, but has to try and hang on to her power when some people think she doesn't deserve her Dark Lord title, and also prevent the, like, humans from going to war with the, I forget what the other faction of people are called, like the animal type ones, the, like, orcs, etc., etc., when she amassed a lot of her allies from these things, and they expect her to, like, take on the humans. So she's trying to, like, mediate between these two, while also not blowing her cover as being a Dark Lord. So I did enjoy this one. There was just one kind of gap in the pacing for me. Like, oh my gosh, it's super important that we go to this one place. So they go to that one place, they encounter, like, a creature guarding it, and they're like, well, we did all we can. And they turn around and leave for, like, another 100 pages of the book. I'm like, y'all were just saying how important it was that we had to do this right away, and now you're leaving because you got the slightest bit of resistance? Just felt a little weird for me. So I did enjoy the series overall, and I would pick up a third if they end up publishing a third. I thought some of the pacing was a little bit weird. And I definitely enjoyed that they toned Devi down in her sexuality, like, a little bit, because it came off real abrasive in the first one. 3.75 also to Deep End by Ali Hazelwood. This is a Ali Hazelwood romance between an Olympic diver and an Olympic swimmer, but make it kinky. So they are both in college, they meet. I think they had, like, a you couldn't possibly be interested in me dynamic, if I remember correctly. And then they find out that they're both interested in, like, the kinky stuff. So it starts off just doing the kinky stuff, and then they end up developing feelings for each other. And it was all right. Like, as far as my expectations for an Ali Hazelwood go, it was the best one that I read this year because I liked it more than I did Mate. But it was also, like, college students, and I guess I am a college student again. I'm just a mature student, so maybe I can't relate. Maybe I need to read more college. That's such an aside. Oh my god. Okay, I read this before I was back in college again. So maybe I'd like it more now that I am a college student again. But at the time, I was like, you are children. You are children. And then the last 3.75 was Friends of the Museum by Heather McGowan. This is honestly really structurally a fun book because you follow 24 hours of this museum where you get, like, that in the morning someone's gonna be dead, and then you follow, like, the 24 hours beforehand of all of these different people who are connected to the museum and their role within leading up to that event. I've never seen the West Wing, but I, from my understanding of TV tropes, think it's the West Wing thing where, like, they're walking the whole time and then you, like, switch to perspectives to someone they walk past. And I thought that was really fun. Obviously, with a cast of characters that as large as you're gonna get with a book like this, there are going to be some where you're like, oh my gosh, yes, we're with this character again. Yeah, they're so interesting. And then others where you're like, okay, can we get on with it? I don't want to be with this character anymore. So it's kind of why it ends up at a 3.75, is because there were plot lines that I really liked, and then there were plot lines that were just kind of okay, and you have to judge it as a whole, not just on the plot lines you like. So it ended up at a 3.75. I think it was good. And I think if you love a character study type of novel, this will be for you, but I'm more of a plot-driven person. Okay, only like 3 books got a 4, which is crazy considering how many are on this list. First 4-star is Ride or Die by Delilah S. Dawson. This is I think middle grade, so kind of why it's a 4 is because it's not targeted at me as an audience, it's targeted as children. So this is about a girl who's invited to this birthday party, and she's, like, not really that close. It's kind of like a pity invite. So they end up pulling a prank on her where they lock her in the portion of the amusement park that's been shut down because someone died, and she has to try and escape and find her way out of this abandoned amusement park with the help of some rowdy teens. It's haunted. The amusement park is haunted. I enjoyed it for what it was. It's just a little bit of a young writing for me to, like, give it a 5. So Ride or Die was fun. It's a horror book that if you love a Goosebumps, I think you'll also like this one. Next we have When the Wolf Comes Home by Nat Cassidy. This is about a woman who one day finds a child like crying in the bushes, and she's like, "What's up, little child?" And he's like, "I'm scared of my dad." And they end up running away together because this child is also like kind of magic in a weird way. I don't remember how much of that is in the description, so I don't want to spoil it too much, but there's something going on with this kid that's a little weird. So they're being pursued by like the dad, but then also like the government, because they want to experiment on this kid or whatever. I did enjoy this book. It just wasn't a favorite. Like, I think it was a very well done kind of thriller paced horror where they're like on the run. And there were some cool world building elements. I can't remember if I liked the ending. I do remember what the ending was, and I just genuinely do not remember if I liked it or not. Huh. Interesting. I guess that's why it's a 4. I was kind of, I guess, neutral. It was good, but I'm neutral on how I felt about it. And the last 4 is Eat the Ones You Love by Sarah Marie Griffin. This is about a woman who goes into a flower shop and she falls in love with the person who works in the flower shop, but also we might have a little shop of horror situation going on because there's a sentient plant in the background. Is this actually, are they in love with each other? Or is the plant manipulating them the whole time? I just remember this one being fine. Like, I really loved the concept. I think the relationship was interesting, but I think overall it was just okay. At 4.25, we have Terror at the Gates by Scarlett St. Clair, and like, who is she? Who is she? That she gave like a urban fantasy mythology book a 4.25. I read this because my friend Julia freaking raved about it. So this is like, again, urban fantasy mythology retelling, but it is Lilith, demons and not gods, angels kind of thing. So she's from the good side of town, but then they're trying to force her to get married, so she runs away to the bad side of town, and she ends up doing theft to make money, and then she steals something that puts a target on her back, and there's also this like club owner, I think, who's kind of watching out for her, so they kind of team up for the purposes of the stealing, but then also for the sexy. I think I liked the plot and I liked the characters, but there were some like writing issues, but I had fun with this. I think I had fun with this despite myself, honestly. I was not expecting to enjoy it, and then I caught myself off guard by enjoying it. And then I also just had a fun time because I had a lot of friends who were reading it at the time as well. So I liked a romantasy kind of. There's a romantasy I would recommend from this year. Couldn't have predicted that. Another 4.25 was Slash Beauties by A. Rushby. This one is about a series of 3 anatomical Venuses that in the present time, someone has been trying very hard to like reunite and destroy them because they're cursed. So you switch between kind of what's happening in the modern day of her like trying to acquire these Venuses and how she's connected to them. And then also in the past, you get the backstory of the 3 ladies of the night who these anatomical Venuses were modeled on, so to say. And you get the drama of like how they became ladies of the night, how they struggle to like create their own safe brothel, and how they get taken advantage of by various people. So I think that was really interesting. It just was a little weird shift between the 2 timelines. And I think also when I requested the arc for this was billing itself as horror. And while definitely horrific things happen in this book, I think it leans a bit more historical fiction, just because of how much of the book is not necessarily the horror and the magic, but is about like what it was like to be a female prostitute in the olden times. I think this one was just kind of mismarketed, and if I had more realistic expectations as to what I was going into in terms of that balance of horror historical fiction, I might have enjoyed it more, you know? Okay, another one of my anticipated books that, like, I think my anticipation was just too high for it. Lucky Day by Chuck Tingle. Wait. Oh, that's a singular tab. Okay, so this is Chuck Tingle, Rope Your Gaze, which was one of my favorites from last year, so I was very much looking forward to this one. This one is about this one day where there was, like, a mass amount of low probability, unlucky events that happen to people. So like a monkey dressed as Shakespeare smashes someone to death with a typewriter, or like every flight 777 crashes. Like crazy amount of weirdly improbable things all happening on one day. And then we time jump a year later, and this casino has weirdly lucky odds. And our main character is someone who literally wrote the book on this casino. She wrote about how it's weird that their probability is what it is. And the FBI, CIA, whatever agency seeks her down to try and have her investigate whether this casino's weirdly luck is somehow connected to that mass improbability event. I did enjoy the elements of this book that were about that like weird improbability, because there are more events that happen throughout the book, like after the time skip. Weird Rube Goldberg level machine of unluckiness, right? I think this veered a little bit into like, your life is worth living, the Midnight Library of it all, I would say. And like, that's great, but also I was here for the horror and not the life lessons on why I shouldn't kill myself. So the fact I even exist in the first place is the most astronomically low probability event there is. I'm not gonna waste that because nothingness is easier. Like, lovely sentiment, but I'm picking up a horror book. Not what I'm here for. So I think this one, again, suffered from a little bit of my expectations for it because of how much I loved Bury Your Gaze. I still think it's worth picking up, especially if you want more of like a sci-fi than a true horror. Next 4.25 is Hot Wax by ML Rio. This was another one that I honestly thought going in it was going to be a horror and ended up being more of a historical fiction. So this is about our main character, Suzanne, who at the beginning of the book, she's like running away from her life in the suburbs. And then we switch back to her summer in 1989, where she toured with her dad's like up and coming rock band. So you get like alternating chapters of what's happening in the current day and what happened that summer, and kind of how that summer had such a profound impact on the entire rest of her life. And there's also these hints of like, she's not in contact with her dad anymore. And then he dies. So she's driving cross country in his car after his death, after not speaking to him for like a decade. So you're trying to like piece together what happened, because they were clearly very close that summer, and what happened since that made everything fall apart. And I think this one had like one perspective too many. There's a character you get the POV of. I hated reading from that character's POV, but I did enjoy the like domino effect of what happened to her, that kind of switch back and forth, trying to piece together like how this relationship deteriorated so far in this span of time. And then I also just like, I kind of enjoy like a rock star on tour story that definitely hit an interest that I have in books. Grown, I also read this year and gave 5 stars. That's also kind of like a music industry book. I really love Guitar Girl. Like, following a band on tour is a type of book that I enjoy, and I honestly should try and find more of. Is that kind of a weird niche? Or is that a thing that's easy to find? Who knows? I'll have to look into it. But I actually did end up liking this for what it was, which was a historical fiction about touring with your band in the 80s. And if one of the band members was your dad. And the last 4.25 is Witchcraft for Wayward Girls by Grady Hendrix. This is about a teenage girl who is pregnant, and this being the 70s, her family's trying to hide it, so they send her to a house for wayward girls, where she's now surrounded by all these other teen girls who have gotten themselves pregnant. I don't like the way I phrased that. All of these girls who have been impregnated. Then she, from the traveling librarian, is given a book on magic, and the girls use this book to inflict their feelings and emotions on those who are caring for them, to have them empathize with their pain in a very literal sense. This being a male author, I was a little like, you're gonna write a story about a pregnant teenage girl? Are you gonna be able to do that? But apparently this was based on some experiences of Grady Hendrix's own family. So he did put in the work to research it, and despite this being about pregnancy, which is already kind of a thing I don't usually like, I did really end up enjoying this. I think it has like very realistic depictions of how horrible it is to give birth, and I respect it for that. Not gonna be my favorite because that is very much what this is about, and like her conflict of whether she wants to keep her baby or not. I hated any of those chapters where she's like waffling about that, because I have very strong opinions on children and not good ones. I enjoyed this despite not thinking it was going to end up being a book for me. So kudos to Grady Hendrix. You got me to enjoy a book about pregnancy. 4.5s now. We are getting into the really great ones. Victorian Psycho by Virginia Fato. This is about, I think this is a woman who becomes a governess. I think I read like 3 books of that this year with that as kind of a plot point. She also is kind of a psycho. And there's a murder. And this was like a gothic horror version of American Psycho. It caught me off guard. It was really short. Like, it was a quick read too, so I didn't feel like it dragged in the pacing at all. And the cover of this is stunning. Someone got a 4.5. Hazelthorn by C.G. Drews. This also got a 4.5. This is about Lowry, and Evander. Lowry is the grandson, whatever, of the rich owner of this estate. And Evander is like an orphan that they took in because his own parents died. And when the old man dies, he leaves the estate not to Lowry, his actual blood, but to Evander. But there's something kind of creepy going on with the garden in this estate, and it's kind of spreading out and invading everything. And there's these like creatures who keep coming and trying to attack Evander. And there's something also that happened between Evander and Lowry that like they're told that they're not allowed to be in the same room alone. All of that going on. I did enjoy this. I think C.G. Drew's writing, particularly the botanical horror elements of it, is just so well done, so beautiful. Like, he is a cobwebbed collection of pretty untruths and made-up stories, and if all that is cut away, there is nothing left. Like, I love C.J. Drew's writing. I just think that this was a little too similar to Don't Let the Forest In, which I liked a lot more. So while I did love this, it can't get the same rating as Don't Let the Forest In because I didn't like it as much as Don't Let the Forest In, so it ends up getting a 4.5. Some like little plot things, I'm like, I don't know if that makes total sense. Overall, enjoyable, really well written in terms of like descriptions, if you like a botanical horror. Also, we have Wearing the Lion by John Wiswell. This is a Greek mythology retelling of Hera and Heracles. Heracles is one of Zeus's master children. Hera is never a fan of, but he's named after her. And basically this like swaps between the POVs of Heracles and Hera, where Hera's like, ugh, I'm gonna send snakes to kill that son because I'm so mad at Zeus. And Heracles will be like, oh, thank you, Hera, for letting me prove my strength. And it's like them back and forth. Heracles totally misinterpreting all of Hera's actions, and Hera like trying to kill this man. It's fun. I really liked the way that this retold the myth. I think towards the end there were some pacing issues, but I was having so much fun in the first part of it with the like, oh, I can't wait to kill him. Oh, thank you, Hera, you're my mom, and I love you, and I'm gonna worship you. Just like, stop worshiping me, I'm trying to kill you. Such a fun dynamic. I really liked all the like cast of characters that Heracles collects over his journeys, and the reframing of some of the most notable accomplishments of Heracles. So I had a lot of fun with this. I did really enjoy it, and also depicts my favorite goddess, Artemis, which is, I feel, one of the goddesses who no one ever includes in anything. So shout out to John Wiswell for giving not the spotlight, but at least some attention to my girl Artemis. A nonfiction? Who is she? Everything is Tuberculosis by John Green. Oh, she's a John Green fan. That makes sense. Okay, so Everything is Tuberculosis, the history and persistence of our deadliest infection. This is about tuberculosis, a nonfiction book, and it tells the history of the human world through the lens of tuberculosis infection. And then it also has chapters where John Green tells a very personal story about a boy, he gets when he's a boy, he's a man now, in Sierra Leone who has tuberculosis, and the way that poverty and wealth disparity contributes to the continued persistence and spread of this disease, and access to education and healthcare could help, destroy it for good. I did really enjoy this. I admittedly don't know that much about disease. I listen to the Sawbones podcast, and that's about the extent of my healthcare knowledge. I'm not a science person. I haven't taken science since not even end of high school, grade 10 high school. So maybe someone with a science background might not like this as much, but for me, who does only have a baseline knowledge, I thought this was really approachable, that it was really good at explaining the more medical side of it in an accessible way, but also framing it in a way that does make it personal and emotional, because John Green, this particular person that they talk about having tuberculosis, is someone that he knows personally. So I did really enjoy this overall as a little quick nonfiction. I try and read at least some nonfiction a year. This really helped balance out the over 900 page other nonfiction that I read this year. So I did enjoy this. Again, don't know if I would recommend it to someone who has a degree in epidemiology, but if you are just someone who's curious to learn a bit more about it, I really like this. And the last 4.5 is Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins. Sunrise on the Reaping is the latest book in the Hunger Games series. It is from the perspective of Haymitch, which was Katniss's mentor. He is the previous District 12 victor. And when we see him in the Hunger Games, he's a huge alcoholic. This shows the games that he won. And I honestly wasn't the biggest fan of the Hunger Games before this year. I have since reread them, and I've definitely upped my ratings of them. And that is largely in part to the fact that I helped with a Sunrise on the Reaping themed readathon this year. But Sunrise on the Reaping, Haymitch's games, I do love a deadly game, so I did like the aspects of this that was the actual games, but then there was a pretty big lead up to get there in the meantime, which pacing for me made it a little slow, but I did really enjoy the games part of it. I'm no better than the Capitol. I admit this, I acknowledge this, and I did cry. I think twice in this book. It did gut punch me. So really good. Honestly, I think is my favorite Hunger Games novel. So take that what it's worth. 4.75s, we have two. Semi Well Adjusted Despite Everything by Alison Stoner. This is about Alison Stoner, their memoir about being a child star, never really having a starring role type thing. Alison Stoner is best known for being the white girl in the Missy Elliott video. They were also in a few Disney shows as the supporting tomboy character, or they were in the Cheaper by the Dozen movies, where literally a cast of a dozen kids. They never really got their starring role, but the industry still fucked them up still, and the way that they kind of grew to cope with that. They're also in Camp Rock. So I really enjoyed this one, not quite as much as I'm Glad My Mom Died, but I do think if you liked I'm Glad My Mom Died, this one would also probably be along the same veins and interesting to you, because it does hit on some of the same themes, but from a slightly different perspective of someone who never got that Sam and Cat starring role. And the other 4.75 was Fan Service by Rosie Danan. This was the best romance that I read this year. So this is about a teenage girl who absolutely loves this supernatural show, and she gets a chance to meet the actor in the show that she loves the most. And then she walks away and she overhears him be oh, these fucking nerds, man. Not in that exact wording, but I'm so sick of these weirdos. And she kind of internalizes this, and she at the time was the runner of the most popular like lore archive for the show, but she kind of falls out of it. And then we time skip like 15-20 years later, and the actor is kind of washed up now because the show's over, and then he finds himself turning into a werewolf in like the exact same way that the show kind of does. So he seeks out resources on the lore of the show, and who does he find except this girl that he didn't know he insulted like 15 years before, and it's a romance. They have a little tension. They fall in love. This felt like a love letter to those of us who grew up on Tumblr. I really enjoyed this as someone who like used to be in the Super Lock fandom. So I enjoyed this. There's like a little bit of an age gap romance, but I feel like they're old enough at the point of the book that it doesn't really make me give the ick. I did really enjoy this, and the best romance that I read this year. Okay, and now are the 5 stars, which I've kept. I looked into my list, and this is not the same order that I did in my best books video, so I'm going to try and look at my best books and the 5 stars I did and try and remember which ones came out in 2025, because I've been filming for like an hour at this point. I'm not fucking stopping to do this. Okay, so Bat Eater and Other Names for Khorzang by Kylie Lee Baker. This is about a woman who is a crime scene cleaner, and during COVID, there is a rash of Asian people who are found dead in their apartments, and she is trying to like piece together what could possibly have happened to them. And also at the same time, she's dealing with the trauma of one of her very close family members dying horrifically, like jaw dropped in the first chapter of this book because of that incident particularly, and then she's haunted by like the ghost of that family member, she thinks. I enjoyed the way this handled COVID and the paranoia that really just pervaded that time, particularly for those who were of Asian descent, considering all of the anti-Asian sentiment that was going around at the time. I really enjoyed this one. I was just so enraptured with it the whole time, so 5 for that one. Also 5 for Vera Wong's Guide to Snooping on a Dead Man. This is a like cozy mystery about this Chinese grandma who is solving crimes by just like showing up at her suspect's doors with food and being like, "Did you kill that guy? No? Okay, well, then you can eat this food, but also you're now recruited into my little gang of crime solvers, and you are going to help me find out who actually killed this guy." So I just love her as a character. I love the cast of characters that we've now amassed since the last book. I do think the mysteries are pretty well done as well. Like, they're interesting. I think this is a guy who like invested a bunch of money in NFTs and scammed people. I don't know if that was a plot twist or not. Ignore me if it was. I enjoyed this mystery. I enjoy the characters so much. Vera Wong's such a hoot. So the 5 star for that one. Blood on Her Tongue by Joanna Van Veen. This was like my most anticipated release of the year and my first 5 star of the year, actually. So this is about our main character, who are 2 sisters, and one of them has fallen ill and the other one like travels to go see her. We're in the Netherlands. We're in the 1887, so like old-timey times. The sister who is sick, there's something weird going on. Like, it's not just tuberculosis. It's not the consumption. It's something related to bog bodies. And I love a bog body. I love the way Joanna Van Veen writes gothic horror. I don't really like gothic horror that much, except for when Joanna Van Veen writes it. So that's a credit to her. This cover's stunning. I got my sprayed edges. I just really, really love Joanna Van Veen's gothic horror. And this one gives me Mina and Lucy from Dracula, and also lesbians. So what more could you want? A nonfiction pick, The New Age of Sexism by Laura Bates. This is about the way AI is replicating historical misogyny and the way that companies are just failing to address the way that this technology is, from its training, trained to be misogynistic, and then being used by end users to do even worse things, like generative AI being used to make revenge porn, or, I don't know, sex doll brothels? What the hell is that? Didn't know those existed until I read this book. And I think that this takes a very balanced approach to AI. It's not in condemning of it as a concept, even though could be. I think this is approachable to you regardless of where you are on the scale of like AI enjoyment. Also giving you something to think about, that to be not necessarily critical about the existence of AI, but the way that it is completely unregulated at the moment. Okay, then we have The Witch of Willow Sound by Vanessa F. Penny. This is about a woman whose aunt has gone missing, so she travels to small town Nova Scotia to go track down her aunt, and she finds out that the small town kind of thinks her aunt's a witch. And people are like trying to break into her aunt's house, and she's been told under no circumstances to let anyone into the house, but also to find her aunt. So she is investigating what happened to her aunt, and at the same time trying to keep all these nosy small town people out of her business. I really enjoyed the like horror, thriller, mystery aspects of this, but then also it has the most like beautiful description of magic I've ever seen in my life. It made me cry. So I just really loved like small town magic of this. I loved the characters in this, and it was genuinely a good horror as well. So this one hit just a lot of boxes that I didn't think could all be in one book, but did. And shout out to this. I did get this as an ARC, and then I bought a physical copy of it because I just loved it so much. Okay, now we're in the top 3 releases of 2025 for me. Number 3, We Love You Bunny by Mona Awad. This is the sequel to Bunny, a book that was my top book like a few years ago. We Love You Bunny is the prequel sequel. You are getting a recontextualization of the events of Bunny based on the bunnies giving their backstory as to what happened before the events of Bunny. So it does kind of help you understand the events of Bunny better based on that context. And then we also get introduced to a new character. And when I tell you that I will not shut up about him, he is my son and I love him. Literally, I can't walk down the aisle of a pharmacy without being like, oh my God, my son! Because I just love this character so much. I find Mona Awad's writing in this really unique. You can very clearly get all of these different perspectives and know exactly who's speaking because they are so distinct. And there's these like little quirks that each of them have that absolutely just give them such a great personality and such a great depth. I'm trying to mention things in this video that I didn't already cover in my best books video. I really loved this, and I now have incorporated saying afeared into my daily vocabulary because that's how much this has impacted my life at this point. Second favorite release of 2025, The River Has Roots by Amal El Motar. So this book is a retelling of the Ballad of Two Sisters. So in that ballad, there are two sisters who are fighting over the same guy, and one of them drowns the other in the river. This one, the sisters actually love each other. Weird concept. And one of them falls in love with a fairy on the other side of the forest, but there's this like rich guy who thinks he's entitled to them, and all of these things. Oh my gosh, this is so beautifully written. It's like very much old fairy tale style. And then you also, the audiobook, get the author and her sister making music for the audiobook. So there's songs, there's harp, there's like, I think it's flute. And I just really loved the experience of this. It's really, really short. And I've listened to it like 3 times at this point just because it's so cozy to me. It's so reassuring to me. And it's a book about sisterly bonds. So really enjoyed that one. And I do now have a physical copy of my absolute best book of the year, Wake Up and Open Your Eyes. This is not only my number 1 2025 release, this was my number 1 book in general for this year. This is about a like zombie apocalypse that started because people have been brainwashed by Fox News. And you get like part 1, which is the kind of start of this apocalypse. And then you get part 2, where you get a specific family and how each member of the family kind of fell into being brainwashed. And it really covers the different areas of the alt-right pipeline. So like Fox News, the Crunchy Mom pipeline, the incel teen pipeline. Like it really gives you insight into all of those aspects of how one falls into that mindset while also being like horror. So obviously some of it's exaggerated and some of it's gross and some of it's violent, but I really love that. I really enjoyed what it was saying about all of that. And alt-right pipeline is an area that I'm very fascinated by. So I really liked a horror book based on those concepts. So that is, in my opinion, the best 2025 release that I read this year of the, 46 or so that I have read. If you made it to the end of the video, let me know what the best release you read from 2025 was, or leave the salad emoji, because there is a salad on the cover of this book. If you enjoyed, like and consider subscribing so you don't miss any of my future videos. There are links in the description to my Goodreads and my Instagram if you want some previews on what I read throughout the month. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day. Wee woo, wee woo. Oh, those are big wee woos.